Alright, it's Andy again, back at St. George Brewing. Today we're going to talk about fermentation and cellaring. The tank behind me is a fermenter, cone shape, allows it to be a multi-use kind of fermenter. They're called uni-tanks. Allows us to do our primary fermentation, our secondary fermentation, and our conditioning all in a single vessel. Our process is at the end of the brew day, we bring the cooled hopped wort over to this side, add oxygen to it, throw the yeast in, all of it goes into the tank. The yeast sees the sugars, sees the oxygen, starts fermenting. Two of the byproducts of fermentation, alcohol and CO2, and as you can see, this tank behind me is actively fermenting. The excess CO2 is blown off into this bucket down here on the floor. There's two types of beers, ales and lagers. Ales traditionally English, lagers traditionally German. Ales, the primary difference between the two is flavor profile. And you get that primarily not just from the malt and the hops and the water, but also from the yeast. The subtle differences, the nuances, the soul of the beer, if you will, comes from the yeast. Ale yeast tend to ferment a little bit warmer, a little bit faster. Lagers cooler, a little slower. Ale fermentations take about 3 days. We will then, over the next 7-10 days, slowly cool them down to 30 degrees, allowing them to mature, to age, to develop the flavors that make it taste like beer. Lagers, on the other hand, will ferment for about 7 days, and then they sit for another, as we slowly cool them down, over another 3-4 week period until the flavors that we're looking for are there. The shape of the tank, the cone shape, allows us to harvest the yeast, to dump the yeast, whatever we need to do with it. Tanks are all pressure tanks so that we can capture the CO2 towards the end of fermentation. Here at St. George, we'll pick up 90-95% of our fermentation, our carbonation naturally through fermentation. Towards the end of the maturation process, we'll start sampling the beer. We'll be looking for the clean flavors or the estery flavors that are the flavors that make it taste like the beer is supposed to be. Not every beer finishes exactly on schedule. It's a biological, microbiological process. And so we'll come mornings, we'll come through here and we'll try the beers that are finishing up to find out if they're ready to be filtered. When we do determine that they're ready to go, we will send them through our filter, strips out all the yeast, makes them a nice, clean, brilliant beer that people like to drink.